at PCDN, Dr. Rojas helps lead strategic development, partnerships, content development, and programming to engage over 38,000 academics, practitioners, and organizations around the world in promoting careers in social change. And within that role, she has launched and leads their social change career podcast. And again, PCDN are big friends of ours. We are huge fans of theirs. We advertise with them. We go to them when we need insights on, like, we're going to be massively redoing our website. And one of the first people we called was Craig, who is the CEO and president of PCDN. So just brilliant minds, and quite frankly, just the most amazing and humble humans that you would want to hang out with. And if I could get myself down to Colombia, I would just to hang out more in person. And that is where Dr. Rojas is joining us from today. Dr. Rojas, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you, Krista. What an amazing intro. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to you, Sarai, to the Kroc School for making this possible. And this just shows me what a cool university and school you guys are in, because it's like you're embracing all the new formats of content distribution where people are. And so 3 years ago, Craig, who, by the way, since we know each other, happened also to be my husband. We actually met in grad school. So, oh my goodness, that's a whole other episode. And I started working with him in PCDN for like around 9 years, more or less, before I had my own career, my whole thing. But 3 years ago, he's like, "You like to talk, start a podcast." And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, just go ahead and do it. And we're like, well, but we're moving countries like in 3 months. He's like, yeah. So, and I said, and by the way, I only have heard like 2 podcasts in my entire life, and I'm a social science trained, from BA in political science, master's in peace and development, PhD in conflict resolution. There's no sound engineering there. He's like, figure it out. And so what I'm presenting to you today is 3 years later, 7 seasons later, I am still figuring it out. So I get excited about these type of presentations because really without no training in coding or engineering, not being really great or following the STEM, I'm going to try my son to do it, but in my case, not formal training on anything technical or math background, I've been able to stumble and pull it off more or less. I would say I still consider myself a student, but my biggest accomplishment, as I was telling Krista, is that I haven't stopped. So this is like a DYA guide. It's I'm going to share very, very, very real, honest budget, how I do it, in the hopes that this will help you. And also ask me questions. But also I would hope that you said, hey, but I know something a lot better you could be trying. And that's how I also will learn and benefit from it. But if you are curious about how to start your own podcast, let's get on with it. So this is from idea to actual episode we're going to go through. Some parts are a little bit dry, but if you're interested in the podcast, then that's what you're going to have to do. So I am now in the process of, I'm very afraid of technology, by the way. So it says that I can control Sarai's screen. I think I am controlling it. Yeah, magic. Okay, so ready to podcast. Let's see that we have the little I'm pausing here for a second. Okay. So, to your right, there is the name of the podcast. I encourage you to go and look it up at pcdn.global /listen. Then you will see all 7 seasons. This is my logo. This is like the third iteration logo that I've had as its social change career podcast. Um, let's take a breath for a second. And one of the first things after Craig said, yo, start a podcast. And I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I like it. I like this. I trained myself for 15 years in formal education, and I'm about to embark in something I have no idea how to do. Interesting. Um, but one of the first things is, who is our audience? So for that, we've had the community that Craig has been creating for PCDN, which is originally professionals in conflict resolution, peace building and development, international development, humanitarian affairs, social innovation, social entrepreneurship. And then we said, well, it's the group of social change makers, for lack of a better term. That's who we want. We did look and said, what's out there? And that's one of my first recommendations for you, is to see, is there a podcast called the Social Change Career Podcast? Because believe it, there is not much that is new and original in this world. Everything has been created. So, in fact, I did search. There were tons of peace building. There is the peace building podcast. There were peace related podcasts. There were tons of career podcasts. Tons. If you search with the keyword career, you're going to find lots of career. But one thing we didn't look, and this is my second question, what is your unique value added? It's also grape in Espanol, uva. UVA. What was unique? I said, Craig, I'm not going to do something that is already being done. I'm not interested in that. And so we found that while they were podcasts on careers, they were not podcasts on careers focused on social change. And that's where we said, okay, there are podcasts on peace building, but they are talking about expert matter. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. It has to be career practical. And so that's where we found 3 years ago that there was an empty space there that we could occupy. Not to say that they could appear any other podcast. Since then, I've seen a lot of podcasts show up. Um, but that's what 3 years ago was there. And then, who are you? I said, Craig, I want it to be interview style. I mean, I'm capable of talking for eons. That's my challenge, is to listen more and talk less. But I wanted to be an informal conversation, intentional. I know I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm goofy. I try not to make inappropriate comments, but I am me, and this is going to be my podcast. You have a problem with it? He's like, no, fine, run it like that. And, I think I am a little bit of an acquired taste. I think I have to get better at asking better questions. But something that people have told me that I do well is that I put my interviewer at ease. I said, let's imagine we're having coffee together and let's just chat. And this is about your life and what you've done. And in between those conversations, we're going to distill in some tips and lessons for our social change listeners. Um, so far, it's been 7 seasons. I started every other week, and I said I want seasonals because I like Netflix and I like the idea of seasons, but frankly, because I want to take small breaks. And that has been, knowing that was so valuable. Let me share that with you, because I know I have a season, and while I'm on quote unquote break, I can continue recording episodes. It's always good to be ahead of the game. Sometimes I'm better than other times, but even with the international move, I was able to do it. And then last season, so when was that? In the fall of 2019, I made the shift from every other week to weekly. That has been great. And I've been even fortunate to be 2 years in a row being one of the top career podcasts by these Mac list jobs. So it's being recognized by, please by no means, this is not, I'm not a world famous. This is very niche, this is very small, and it's growing. And one of the reasons here is that I haven't stopped. I mean, I stopped intentionally during seasons, but I haven't stopped this seventh season, and we're already onwards thinking of season 8. And yeah, one of the biggest lessons, if you can take out of this time, just so that I don't waste your time, is you're going to have the technical aspects and the how to, but this is something that I'm not going to be able to answer for you, is are you willing to start this and be in it for the long run? If you do one podcast a month and if you do one every 6 months, that's not going to cut it, because you have to create continuity with your listeners. And those of you that listen to podcasts know that you want that continuity. It gives you comfort to know that on Fridays, the Social Change Career podcast is on the air. And you want that, especially in this year of 2020. We need these tiny little comfort things. So, I went too fast. My bad. I didn't see. Okay. So, getting to the recording equipment, have your questions in the chat in case I'm going too fast. I do this so, not the talk, but the podcast so much that certain things that are obvious for me might not be for you. But I wanted to share everything I have and that I've done so far. When I was starting to produce my first episode, I had the help of an individual who has a business called the Podcasting Guy, the podcasting group now. And he gave me the advice on this equipment. The microphone is this one, Audio Technica. And at the end, I have a summary of the equipment and the tools, and the cost is about, I checked it yesterday on Amazon, it's still $100, more or less. It's a good quality microphone, but it's not the best by any means. A professional microphone stand, which is that funny thing that you can see. I am not seeing myself, but I trust you can see me, is that little arm that helps you. I was wondering, like, why do I need that? It, by the way, it's like $15 to $19. It's well worth it. You don't have to hand, and this is a game of very good sound. And if you don't have to deal with your arm and your arm getting numb, you really want to talk always close to your microphone, and the stand is going to be able to do it. So it's a $14 to $19. I checked yesterday, and my headphones are amazing. I mean, this is equipped. This is a one-time expense, and I've used it since the beginning of my podcast. And I probably have to change my stand. I lost a thingy. I don't even remember what I lost, but it's a bit unstable. But other than that, this equipment has been worth the initial investment. Can you do it with this type of microphone, the earbud? Yeah, sure, you can. But the idea here is to try to do something as professionally sounding as possible, even though you are at home doing it. What I'm telling you today, if we'd had this conversation to you last fall, I would have already been working with a producer. He was originally producing, and actually, he quit on me. He cut relationships with me because he was getting too expensive. His business was growing too much. So I was happy for him, but he basically, broke it off with me. And after I cried, I realized that artificial intelligence software is readily available for people to do their own production. So even though it's going to sound impressive, like when I say I produce my own podcast, yes, it's an artificially it's an AI software that allows me to do my own production, and it's ridiculously inexpensive. So this is good news if you want to start, because when in the lapse of 3 years, this service got and the expense that I was spending almost $100 a month on my producer to have very well produced podcasts, but I haven't felt the difference with the artificial intelligence software, to be honest, at all. So and I went from almost $100 a month for 2 episodes to now producing 4 episodes, and I pay that software $9 a month. So it's very good news. So the first thing you're gonna do, okay, so let's say, what is the name of the AI software? Is Audiophonic. It'll come in good time. And actually, if you stay Justin, I'm gonna do a little bit of editing, like a workshopy type of activity. Hopefully, I'm gonna be able to pull it off. Audiophonic, and you're welcome. You're welcome, and you're gonna have what is it that I was saying? Yeah, we're gonna see how I do it. And there is some free hours every month. I need to pay $11, I think, is what I pay for the amount of hours I need to edit. But if you're just starting, you may well. A lot of these tools may be free for you if you're just, like piloting. I think it's okay. So um the first step is you need to record your audio. And by the way, disclaimer, I forgot to say that whatever you're receiving today is for an audio podcast. And I've seen recently there is a trend in podcasts to have them on YouTube, in which case they require video editing. So they are still a podcast, and you can put it on YouTube, but strictly a podcast is an audio file. And one of the reasons why there's two reasons why I am still an audio file. One is because we have a community with, as Krista was saying, we actually, I think we have, I don't know, 40,000, depends how you count it. Let's say 60,000 with all of our social media channels. A lot of these folks are in the global south. So I don't want them to deal with very heavy files to download, and paying extra expenses. I want a very light, um, that they can, while they have access to Wi-Fi, they can download the podcast and listen when they're not connected, which is what I do when I'm in airplanes. So we kept it that, and I also don't want to deal with on a weekly basis with video editing. I'm still not there yet. Will I ever film myself and others? Maybe that's where I'm gonna go in 1 or 2 seasons. But as of right now, it's just an audio file. I originally started on what is it, the name, Skype. My producer at the time hooked up a recorder, so as soon as I had the Skype called, I had an automatic recorder. Well, Skype got clunkier and clunkier and clunkier, and my guests were like, Skype? And I'm like, yeah, that's how he set it up. I can move it. And then I realized, when he broke up with me, that I had full freedom. And now I use Zoom, self-explanatory. In 2020, I just recorded. And the one caveat with Zoom, which is going to lead me to my next slide, is, and by the way, let's say you're like, oh my gosh, do I have to get the fancy Zoom account? No. If you do one-on-one interviews, Zoom will stay free. If you're doing, it depends on what the type of format you want to do. I always wanted to do interviews. If you're speaking on your own, well, you just need to record your own voice. You can do that on Zoom, on GarageBand. But if you're doing group interviews, then you will have to pay Zoom. But let's just say you're doing interviews. Um, we had a client that told us that they needed to record on a fancy studio, and they can only had people in that specific city of Richmond, Virginia. And we're like, no, you don't have that. I mean, it's 2020, everything is virtual. The beauty of this is that our podcast, I've interviewed people from most corners of the world. I may be missing something, but next week I think I'm covering someone from Myanmar and Australia and India and London and the US and DC, um, South America, Africa. And Zoom is a fantastic way of doing that and doing it virtual. I don't have to tell you, it's 2020. Just make sure you push the record button. It has happened to me once. I was midway through one question, and I live in fear of not pushing the record button. There is a little thing that Zoom does, and Here's where things get a little dicey. When you get the Zoom audio file, unfortunately, Zoom will give it to you as an MP4 file. So for Mac computers, because I am doing this podcast in a MacBook Air, I have no idea how you would do it in a Lenovo or a non-Mac. I suspect that it will be easier, actually. In a Mac computer, I have to do open up in Music and do a conversion, which at first it was daunting, but it's quite easy to do, to select and convert it into an MP3 file. So that's like the first step you need to do if you record on Zoom. So you need an MP3 file to be able to put it through the artificial intelligence software. You need the MP3 file when you upload it into the podcast distribution. Basically, just don't ask me technically why an MP3 file, because I have no idea, but just follow this and know that an MP4 file is not going to do it. You need to convert it. And one of the things is I wrote myself a flow chart, and I was talking to Krista, and I was using the metaphor of, like, let's just say we're making a sausage. And my apologies to all of those of you vegan, because I'm talking to Californians. Now, it's a vegan sausage or it's a meat sausage, but it's a sausage. It's a long process. So the first step is we have an MP3 file. Now we got to Justin question, the AI to process the audio. We're going to do it in the workshop part of this conversation. I'm going to show you this part. I'm not going to show you, but basically you go to auphonic.com. You have to sign up. You have to upload your MP3 file. And it's like self-explanatory. You have to click a lot of things. But just to be perfectly honest, I click of those, a lot of questions that it asks, if introductions, and if you're actually starting out, I'm going to make myself available to answer you any concrete questions. But basically, I just make sure it's at 192 bit rates, which has to do with the quality of the sound. I click for noise and hum reduction because sometimes I have construction. And it is as easy as uploading, clicking those two items. There are very fancy things like that. You want to put your intro, your outro. I don't do any of that. I just follow this and I literally click start production, and it will produce this raw file. But it's already produced. That means that it's cleaned, that it means that it had any sound imbalances. And I'm not a sound engineer, so I'm making things a little bit up. But basically, it cleans it and makes it sound as best as you can with the quality of sound that you provided. Quality of sound, as I said, is the gold standard in this game of podcasting. You really don't want to put a listener into a poorly recorded audio, because that's torture, even if the content is good. And so when you have your guests, please ask your guests to use the earbuds so that you minimize the computer audio capability. It's no bueno. Like, you don't want that. That's why you want a microphone. But all you need is your guest to have this, and then you're good to tango. So let's say we went through this. It's easy. You can wait a little bit. You have to wait, oh my goodness, 5 to 7 minutes for your whole thing. And this is what I was paying my engineer, my sound engineer, my producer, a lot to do. But now it's available to us mortals to do it, and it's being life-changing. Okay, so bear with me on this. So now you have the recording, and that recording includes Justin, you're the person that I'm seeing here for some reason. Okay. So not to pick on you, but let's say Justin, if you don't mind me using, oh, no. Why is it going? Okay. Let me just not move things. Let's say in this produced file that we have, it also includes like, good morning, Justin, you're my guest. How are you? Okay. Do you have any questions? No, it has all that, right? So you have to clean that up. We'll go to that in a second. But there's a couple things that we need to do in this process of making this audio. And I've seen it as a tendency, and this is your choice. But let's just say that I decided to do it with an introduction and an outro, which is the goodbye. The introduction is usually pre-recorded, and you're gonna listen to mine. It's hopefully no longer than 30 seconds, maybe 15 will be nice. And you have your music, and you say, "This is the Social Change Career Podcast. This is where we sit down with amazing social change professionals. Welcome." But that's pre-recorded. And so also you mentioned your sponsors here, if you want. In other podcasts, and Craig has said, why don't you put I haven't put sponsors in the middle of it, like a good old fashioned TV show. I'm afraid that everything will, like, it's too much for me to handle, but feel free to experiment, because I think what I do is just, you can just do a million other iterations and probably a lot better than what I do. But um, remember what I said, I get, this is what I can control for now. So I have a pre-recorded introduction that I wrote a script and I read it. I also, in this white thing, I bought legally, I bought a song. This is very funny. You just get into their songs for podcasts. There is a million, gazillion, billion options. You just have to sit down one day and look for the song that you want. This is a song that is going to stay with you. I haven't changed songs. I still love my song. But maybe sometimes as you change the branding mid through, or you can change it, but you buy it one time. I forgot, it was 3 years ago how much I paid, like $20. I am sorry, I was gonna look for the place for for the songs, and I didn't do it. So if one of you is interested in where to find music for podcasts, I can do that as homework later. I apologize, I didn't do it. Draft the script for intro and outro, and then the sponsors. We've been fortunate enough to have one sponsor from the very beginning, and sometimes we have sponsors. Now we're offering seasons and also episodes, so you can play with the sponsors there. So those are like the three components. Now, I've seen recently some tendencies in a sport that I am a fan of, and it's happening this weekend in California, which is why I love you guys all so much, which is the CrossFit Games. And their podcast, they just do video and they don't even bother doing an intro. They don't even introduce their guests. They just start talking, and that's one way to do it. Uh, know who you are and know who your audience is. I still feel that for what PCDN is, for the type of topics that I'm not formal myself, but I still want to provide sort of that introduction. I'm making it shorter and shorter as the seasons go by, but I still want to provide that structure. But I've seen a lot of podcasts that don't. And if you know who you're talking to and your audience, you will be able to make that decision better. If you said, like, I don't need that, that sounds like an old fashioned podcast that only old people will listen. I just want to go ahead and start talking, or I want to record my introduction new every time. Go ahead and do it. You will know better. But I try to do it like this from the beginning. And well, no one has told me I suck that much that I have to change the intro, the outro. Um, so far we're sticking with it. So that's this part. Then editing your episode, that's what I want to show you later, just because it's going to be a little bit of fun and hopefully you can listen to it. There's many software out there. I am naming two. Audacity is the one I use, and I happen to learn, and it's really easy to do, and I love it for that reason. But Audacity is, Mac doesn't play well with others, as you know, and so Mac hasn't allowed the latest update of Audacity, and sometimes it crashes. And I am so stubborn that I have an amazing software. All of you who have a Mac can use GarageBand, and I haven't become one with GarageBand, and so I still use Audacity, even though as a Mac user I have a problem. If you don't have a Mac, you're good, and I recommend you Audacity for its simplicity. So basically in Audacity, what you do is you are going to have as many files as you want, But in this case, we have the audio, the long audio that we put through the artificial intelligence software. And you're going to, you can do several things. First, we have to clean it, which is take out the good morning, Krista. How are you? How are we today? Do you have every? Oh, I need to go for water. That you need to take that out from the beginning and from the end. But lately, my beautiful, amazing guests, I love them, have been stopping themselves. I'm like, I want to stop. Can we record again? And I'm like, yeah, sure, of course. And then I see myself adding minutes and minutes to the process. But you can cut and paste and take out what you don't want. Sometimes they say, no, no, I didn't mean to say this in public. Because, once it goes air, it's like for the world to be, and who knows how you can clean that up. So it depends how it goes. First, most important thing, you have to clean the beginning and the end, but then you can listen to it completely, or I am going to show you graphically how you can, this week I had a very hard one to edit, and I just have to sit down and listen to it. If you remember that your conversation went smoothly, it is a matter of minutes how you clean the beginning and the end, and then you add the intro with the music and the outro with the music, and then it's just one happy family. And we're gonna do that in the workshop. I'm gonna have the raw file and we're gonna play with it, and you're gonna see. Then simply, even though you originally had 3 tracks, then it's going to do its magic and it exports as an MP3 file. And that's your final, that you have your first audio, right? Here, I want to stop and say, oh, you think this was hard? Well, having one file as professionally as you can have is really barely just the beginning of things. And that's a little bit of, I mean, it's just what it is. um, because so you have that file, right? But you need to have a name for it. You need to hopefully have a cool logo. Thank God for Canva that helps us, or Adobe, or whatever tool you have to have a good logo. You need to find a way to house them, not just where they are in your distribution, but you need to think of, do I have a landing page, or where am I going to host those episodes? And I know you can have simply, put it in the podcast distribution, but it's nice to have them somewhere, because you don't know how people are getting at them and are looking. You better to have an image and a template with a branding identity for each episode. That's every single thing that I'm saying adds time to your production of this whole sausage podcast thing. Show notes. um, I have to be honest, at first, what I used to do when I first started, I will produce my podcast, then I will listen to it again, and I will write these super expensive show notes. They were great. They were almost like the ones you say that minute 3, she said this thing. I didn't put the minutes, but I went until Craig told me, like, no one is reading those. You know that. And I'm like, yeah, but it takes such pride. Yeah, but no one was reading them. Now I'm down to 2 paragraphs. They're very short and sweet. And some podcasts have a sentence. It's up to you. Know who you're talking to. I also like, as a way to thank my guests, because they're giving their time to me and to the listeners. I like to have the show notes because I have links to their books, to their websites, to their videos, to their upcoming conferences. And it's also for our listeners. I want them to go back, to look at places and links for there to have added information. And then you create an audio promo, or you had to create some form of promotion. I'm happy to say that I have to learn yet another software that is creating these super little cool audio clips, which can work as video clips as well. And this is one of the brand new things that I do every season. Another good argument of doing it seasonal is that I do changes. So I've had 2 logos. I started black and white pictures, and I had a big change this season 7. I changed it, the landing page and the way it looked, and I did a lot of background in the website, in PCDN's website, upgrades. So I'm done for changes. I'm good for a good 2 seasons at the very least. So think of all these elements that should be in place, and it's not just enough to have the audio. And hopefully weekly, ideally bi-weekly, but I'm not there yet. So I don't I started every other week. But all those things have to be in place for your podcast to be seen by people. Hosting your podcast. I only have experience with Libsyn. Libsyn is one of the oldest tool distributions, host and distribution of my podcast. I know there's a million out there. They don't pay me, I pay them. So this is not a, a commercial transaction there, but I've used Libsyn from day one as a suggestion of my producer. And I love them. I'm going to show them to you while we're in the workshop part. They're reliable, they're serious, they host. What do they do? You upload the episode, you upload the show notes, you upload the logo, you upload the image. And what they do is they take all that and they themselves distribute it at the frequency that you tell them to all the channel distribution. So you don't do that. And so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, formerly known as iTunes, Google Podcasts, which is because I don't have an iPhone anymore. I have whatever you call it, I, an Android phone, and so I now listen in Google Podcasts. They do that, and so far Libsyn is reasonably priced, and they're every now and then they're down, but they're very good customer service. I would, I don't know if there's new things. I've seen services now that want to take uh, this process because it's long and tedious, and you pay one sum and they do it for you. And someone was sort of asking me if I was interested, and I look it up, but I still really trust Libsyn better and trust them with my podcast to do that. But please know that I've seen some social enterprises that are offering podcast makers to say, oh, well, give us the audio and we'll do everything else. And that's valid for you to explore. I personally haven't done it. And I think I have a process now that works more or less down, that I'm happy with it at the moment. But I have also changed. So trying to see, we're near the end, and thank you for your patience. I don't see the little start for me to move to the next one. Oh, Sarai. Well, it's been a while, so this is the first Sarai cry for her. Oh, but there it is, the little start. Thank you, Sarai. Post-production tasks. So we have more tasks, and yes, I'm probably killing your mojo right now. Just like, this lady, this is so much work. By the way, if there's an easier way, let me know. Maybe I'm doing all this long, but the whole idea was to just give you the real download on how it has been my experience. Um, and not to discourage you, but to give you all the information in your decision making process, whether you want to do a podcast and you want to do it relatively decent, and if you want to commit to all of this. So that's why I'm killing your mojo, and my apologies for that. So you need a place to host your episode. Like, it can be a very simple website. We have Squarespace and Wix and many other places. Your episode, your show notes, and that's great. Your podcast need a house. And then you need to promote it, because you may have done all this amount of work and you're so excited, but you just not want only your mom and your crazy uncle, pun intended, to just listen to it. You want to promote it, and you want it to be, now don't have, even with, I was already doing a podcast with the PCDN platform, which is not huge, not tiny either, but also not huge. And I haven't become viral, or like in the process of blogging. Podcast is very similar. There are many of us doing podcasts and writing blogs, and very few very notable famous millionaires. Like, this is not going to get you rich or famous instantly, but it will get you places. And if you do it constantly, good things will happen. At the very end, as I said to myself, I have an amazing archive of social change makers at the very least. And that makes me very happy because I love history. And this is creating archives. We're creating memory. So these are things for you to think that you have to create. And we're reaching our final reflections. Thank God, because I want to hear from you. So, will your podcast be weekly or bi weekly or monthly? I talked about it. I don't know if I recommend you monthly because it's hard to create a listenership community with the competition of people doing 2 3 podcasts a week and with all the content we have. And if you go monthly, it will be hard for you to carve a space, but you can prove me wrong. I would love to be proven wrong. Do you have the human capacity, time to do the show on an ongoing basis? Will you consider sponsors, of have you budgeted the cost of this project? There are some costs. It's not free, but I would say the message here, the takeaway is the AI is amazing. I would recommend you invest in these items for quality because you don't want it to sound like too bad. But it's not outrageously expensive, but it's also not free. So, I'm not saying it's gonna break your bank. If you're part of an organization that can cover the cost, I think is so much better. Um, yeah, I mean, you can pay thousands of dollars for like anything, like with a website. What's beautiful about the day and age that we're living these days is that technology has been made accessible to the rest of us. So a podcast is a really good reason to experiment with these software capabilities that now even people like me who have no idea and are very fearful of technology could go and do something. And I think we're near the end. I keep not seeing the little star. Sometimes it shows up. Oh, there she is. I struggle with the little. So some summary of resources and costs. Obviously, this will be available to you so you don't have to rush or take screenshots. The equipment, approximately to 20 Zoom will cost you if you really want to interview a good number of people, but for one-on-one is free. Lip sync cost me $15 a month. The headliner is, I didn't talk about it, is the one that is allowing me now to put my template, my image with the audio clip. I'm sure you have seen those, and I can share that on Instagram and all the social media channels. 5 videos, which is the little audio clips for free, or 10 videos at $8 per month. Currently, I'm not paying. I have enough. Auphonic, very, very important. 4 hours free per month. So it's ideal for you to start playing around. And I pay $9 a month for my 9 hours. Audacity is free, as far as I know. I would pay, if you ask me, I would pay so that I don't have the problems with Mac, but this is Mac not playing. GarageBand comes with Mac, and there's a million other resources. WordPress, I wrote it because that is we have Elementor. We work on PCDN is built on WordPress. So there are some, but this day you can have Squarespace for less than $10, $5. So as you see, I mean, these are real costs. This is sort of what is the real cost. Forgot to say the most important thing. I always forget to say the most important things, always. Your time. The most important thing here is your time. That's why if I go with my daily rate as a consultant and all the time I put on this podcast, oh my gosh, all this is nothing compared to your time. So maybe you want to ask me, I do like 4 to 6 hours a week on this podcast. And that's, if you quantify that, and just because I am more seasoned in my career, it's we don't cover costs, but we have other reasons why in PCDN we want to do this podcast. And yeah, it just takes a considerable amount of time. And I think we are in the end of our presentation. Monthly cost. So it would be 15 plus 9. It depends the monthly cost, for the equipment that I said, it's not even $50. Is my time that would be, like, I don't even want to go there and think about it because I will get depressed. But it's the time that it takes me. Okay, so yeah, like I can see now. Thank you, Sarai, for making this happen. um I think I would love to answer the questions that are coming from the chat, but following protocol, Krista said she was gonna listen, read the questions. So thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
no worries, and we'll quickly jump into there. Thank you so much for that. Yes, we have questions. So for anybody who hopped on late, we're now going into Q&A, and then we're going to do that part that Catalina was talking about, where she does a little workshopping and shows stuff once we get past kind of main Q&A for people who want to stay on for that. So yeah, we've got the monthly costs. So it sounds like about $220 for startup, and about, call it maybe $20 a month. So if you have $500, you could get going for a year, to summarize there. And then, Catalina, if you have sponsors, how much do the sponsors offset the cost? Obviously, you guys have a brand that you're attached to, but how much do sponsors offset your costs?
Uh, this can be answered to, if we were to offset the cost of like the equipment and the software that I told you, I would say no for sure, but they don't cover. I don't think we're still not, there is no profit. If there is, there is no, because of the time that I put into it. And then once I finish with this whole process that I told you guys, then Craig goes and do so Craig is involved. His time is involved as well, so not so much, but it is important to have it. And the sponsors, the part of monetization of podcasts is hard. And it's so amazing to have any sponsor, whether and our sponsor is very generous, and we love to, it's an amazing, because they've been alone and we've been promoting them for so long. It goes in the show notes, in the audio. And also we showcase professionals from their program, from our sponsor program, to show the impact. So it's an amazing, I mean, they get a lot. And for us, it's also, a sponsor is not just monetary, but it's also kind of like the endorsement that you would have, that, oh my gosh, these people, are being supported by, they believe in this product. But I still think that we could do a lot better work at if, in terms of an income producing, is not. It is absolutely not at the moment.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, hey, if you have somebody who's interested, even if it's a low financial gain sponsorship, maybe go with it for the first one to demonstrate that other people are validating the value that's in your product.
Listen, ask us if you do Christmas or Hanukkah or birthdays, like a sponsor an episode, a sponsor a season. That would be amazing. Yeah, and you can have anonymous sponsors. You didn't have to say my mom paid for this episode, but yeah, I think that's a very savvy strategy, Krista.
Okay, great. So we've got a couple questions here. What is, I think one of them was, how do you go about getting your guests? And that, I've heard you say, is through PCDNs, the social media pushes, and your newsletter, your audience of 38,000 kind of a month is who you reach out to and where you gather people from. Is there anything else that you do?
A couple things. Craig is an amazing networker, so his network is so vast. And I kind of, by now, I have a sense of who would be a nice fit for this podcast. And I said yes or no. And so we're still working on his vast network. He's always connecting on LinkedIn because of the podcast. But I also getting to a point where people ask me to be part of the podcast, individuals that are promoting books. And I have to say that I've accepted a few. Some of them haven't been the right fit. It hasn't. Everyone that I sort of cherry pick is being amazing, and then these other people is not the right fit. It's okay. It will happen. It's lesson you're learning. I recently booked someone who called me through the publisher. People that write books will call you to be on their podcast, and you can do that if you wanted to get guests. You can see who's publishing books and find alignment. And she stood me up. I waited for that was very frustrating because I spent pretty much an hour preparing for each interview. And so that was unfortunate. Again, it happens, but at some point, if you get some traction, people will ask you to be on the podcast. I have people advise me and said, only take people with amazing platforms, people that have upwards of thousands of followers. And I think that's a good advice. And I don't follow it because I'm not only thinking of how massive this podcast is going to get. I just really want to have the right people. And so you don't have a big audience, but I think we can click and we can have a good conversation and you can give value to my audience, you're in. And just because you don't have a big platform, but some people, the decision of getting guests is how big their social media presence is. And hey, I don't want to judge you. If you go that way, you probably grow way faster than I am.
Great. And then what is the headliner?
Okay, I forgot to put that in the presentation. My bad. Headliner just appeared in my radar screen very recently. Yet another software. It is integrated with LipSync, or you can go alone, and it will allow either to grab your video podcast or your image, let's say a picture of Krista with like episode 10, season whatever, the social media and the title. And then you can integrate 15 seconds to 2 minutes or 3 minutes, it's usually 15 seconds, of a clip of something that Krista said in the audio. And have you seen this promotion of podcasts when you hear the little voice in social media and you're scrolling and it's 11 p.m. and you need to be sleeping, but you're scrolling this and you got the podcast and it says it's that one. So it makes you look really hip and cool. And I just started learning. So it's the merging of either video with audio or just a static image as I have. That's called an audio clip. And it's a great promoting tool, because if you do all this work and you don't promote it, you're not getting very far.
Awesome. Okay, so Robin has some technical questions and a philosophical question. I'm going to take them kind of one by, or I'll throw a couple out at you. So we'll go through them like this. First, technical. Do you need to supply sound equipment for guests sometimes?
100% of my guests have been remote from the design of the podcast. I do have prior either conversations or email exchange in which I ask them. Almost everyone on the planet have these. A few of them have said I don't have, but no, you don't need to. I know of one guy in one podcast that he wouldn't record if the person didn't have equipment, and that's his choice. But in my case, no. But you want to tell them, be in a quiet space, have water, because this will dry their, if they don't have experience talking that long. Be quiet, have your earbud, and that's good to go. You set the parameters, arrange them in advance if you can.
Okay. And can they have any headphones? Is it just about headphones, or it needs to have like a mic that is closer to them?
The game here is the mic. This is what we're trying to get at. The headphones, no, the headphones is for me, but they don't have to, but they usually have these. I have noticed the difference when they're talking to the computer and it sounds hollow and it's not that great.
Got it. Okay. 2, promotion. In addition to promoting at your own organization, how do you promote to the world? Is this done by the hosting company like LipSync? Yeah.
Yeah, no, the LipSync, more than promotion, LipSync is distribution. So it's distribution to the channels, because ultimately you need someone to get it to where your podcast live, in your phone. This is, okay, where is my podcast? Okay, here. I don't know if you can see. This is what LipSync done. Is this promotion? No, it's distribution. I do promotion through our social media channels, and then there is a huge amount of promotion that you do with your guest. Your guest will do the promotion, and you tag everyone as well. And then, what else do we do for promotion? You can I don't do that. But yeah, the thing is, each week you have the individual you're interviewing and their organizations, as and that's how you gather other people, because you tag them through.
Great. And then tell us again where the sound bites are used, as well as the video clips. Are those on your website to entice potential listeners or to click on the podcast?
That's in Headliner. That's the audio clip that I talked about. That's what it gets sent out. So it's really nice. You can send an image, or but it's much more powerful if you can send the sound bites, the audio clip, everywhere to social media channels and promotions. You can put it on newsletters. You can request newsletter to put you in. But remember that it's this promotion, you have to have it set up for every week, right? So what changes is whoever you're interviewing will have their own channels, and that's where you jump in every week to do the tags and everything. But every week, regardless, you should have like my social media channels, or these. Great if you have a partnership to help you promote even further as well.
Okay, great. And then the last philosophical question before we then get to Justin's question is, I'm insecure about my lack of knowledge in the peace, justice, and social innovation world. Do you have to do a lot of research ahead of time, or would you recommend getting a more experienced interviewer?
Yeah, I love the question. I love your question, Robin, because oh my goodness, I could imagine what I'm covering. I'm covering the social change spectrum, which is a term we have coined because we had no idea how to call this. It's everyone that is producing positive social change. I cannot know about architecture and green architecture, or engineering for green housing in the slums in Egypt. I mean, I have interviewed engineers, architects, artists, and I cannot be an expert. And you're gonna always feel like I don't have enough expertise. I mean, I'm not. I'm like, I'm 47 and I have been around for a couple decades in the social change field. But I have to say, even if I were starting in my career, don't let that stop you. Obviously, be prepared in every interview, but depending on what type of podcast you're doing, my podcast is about interviewing others and learning from others. And so you want to sound informed about their career, and not like, I cannot just sit down without preparing because I will flop. But don't let if you allow me, what I'm trying to say is that I feel like you always feel like you need to be more prepared. Just do it. Like 3 years ago, Craig told me, like, go ahead and do it. And I had all these hesitations, but you do it and then you'll get better. I think you're already amazing as you are, even though I don't know you. And it's only doing it where you're going to learn more and more. And that preparation is going to be great. But I would just say, let's start doing it. Unless you're gonna read for an hour about your dissertation, which I think, like, do people really want to hear super obscure academic? Maybe they do, and maybe I'm wrong, but just find out what people want to listen to.
Great. And now to Justin questions, which is, can you share about a bit about your strategic planning for your podcast? For example, picking a theme for your season, if you do that, lining up guests and researching your guests.
Awesome. Great questions. I love them, Justin. Strategic planning for the podcast. A lot more happens in a not so glamorous way. I do plan. I love to plan, actually, that I have going on. But the reality is that sometimes you get you get guests that you were not planned. So what do I do? Do I pick a theme for my season? I have wondered myself many times that so far we have done spaghetti across the wall. I feel like if I do one specific, like, let's say, the season of peace, the season of music and arts, that it will be very hard. Specifically, I can assure you I will not find, because it's not just finding guests, it's, are they available? Can we find a common time? I think it's a tricky game, and the scheduling is where I'm the worst. I didn't even started telling you about that because I have blocked it because I'm traumatized. And so when you pick a theme, which could be good, you run into a much more funnel of people that you can have. And then what if it gets too redundant? What if by the 18th, 19th episode, everyone is saying the same? And every time I think that a theme would be cool, I have like yet another reason to keep it fresh, to keep different, and to keep you all guessing, like, what is she going to bring next week? Is it social entrepreneurship? Is it international development? Is it a journalist? Is it I don't know. So far I haven't, but that doesn't mean that if you want to pick themes. I went to another career podcast that was highly scripted. It was only 20 minutes long. A lot of people criticize me for my length, and I guess the length of time should go in the strategic planning. I think you may have more listeners if you do it shorter. It's just that I cannot for the life of me do an interview about your life in 20 minutes. There's no time that I can't get in my mojo. And but if you want to do it quick, like the shorter, you can do it about the topic. And say salary negotiations. I was interviewed by one on salary negotiations, and you just talk about that, and babim babam, you're done. And maybe that's what people, you know, I may be open right now. I haven't changed that, but you have to know whether you want to do it conversational or you want to do one topic and then make it shorter. Lining up guests as much as you can have on advance. Just keep lining guests, never stop, always start asking. And then the research guests, I have Craig with me in an organization. But yeah, you will, what I can tell you is after 3 years, I kind of have a sense of who would fit. A lot of people, podcasts are marketing tools at the end of the day, and a lot of people want their book promoted, and the more you grow, the more people want you there. And so you will develop a good instinct whether that person and that product is good or not. Ours is a little bit niche because it's not just career. So I have a lot of books on like your career, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't do banking, I don't do finance. I can't help you in retail. If you're wanting to change the world in hopefully with positive social change, come on board. But if you can't speak to this community of social change makers, I don't care what you do, it's going to be a hard, I'm going to have to pass.
Right.
Good questions.
Okay. So then I have a quick question. How much time do you have 2 seasons per year, or how many seasons per year?
Two seasons per year.
How much time between I'm recording this season to it goes live, or I'm recording this person and then it goes live in a season?
Oh, okay. The second question, right, is she's asking how big is my pipeline? It's not too big. It's like about 2.5 months, 2 months ish. It's not too long. Just to give you an example, we have the webinars, the career webinars every Thursday, and Craig has already lined everyone up until January. And I'm still working. I am doing season 7, and I have like a month in advance, but I'm still working on season 7. So, who's doing a better job? I think definitely be like Craig, not like me.
But you have all the production. I mean, I love Craig, but you have all the actual like interviewing and then producing to do.
And that this is for the weekly chat. This is not even for the podcast, but he's, he booked up until January. Some podcasts, the really good ones, will have booked 6-7 months in advance. The more you have in advance, the better. And all these tools that I told you give you the capability of pipeline. When I'm on a roll, I have up to 4 episodes in advance. That's the most that I've been advanced. Just 1 month.
Okay. How long is your break in between your seasons?
If anything, I am consistent at being inconsistent. For instance, when we moved countries, I had a lot in the pipeline, like 2 months, because I knew that an international move is no joke. But I still had to produce. We were in our Airbnb and I was like putting everything up, but I had like 2 months. I give myself no more than 1 month. However, I'm on break, but I'm recording episodes.
Right.
So that break in between seasons push me ahead. And I just really, I wish I could be better, to be honest.
But how long is the break, like from our point of view, if we're just coming to listen to you? I mean, obviously we can go into all your previous 7 seasons, but how long between, like, if I followed you weekly, then how long do I have to wait to start the next season?
Mm, yeah, good question. Because I'm looking it from the other point and I'm never stopping. So I think no more than you can get up to like the most 4 weeks. The
Okay.
most 4 weeks. But it's not advised to. I think last time it was between season 6 and 7. It was like 4 weeks. Don't do longer than that. It hurts. It hurts the listenership. But I knew that going in between. But we all have to wait. We all had to wait with Game of Thrones. We all have to wait for seasons, right? That
Yeah.
also creates a little bit of a mystery.
Yeah. And how many podcasts in a season for you?
When it was weekly, every other week, it was like 8 or 9. And now it's like nearly 20. It's a
Okay.
lot.
Wow. Okay. So last question, and then we're going to go into your workshop part of this. So you started with understanding your audience and said that the Social Change Career podcast focuses on social change makers. This is from Robin. I'm interested, Robin is interested in taking the good work of social change makers and amplifying out to the mainstream, almost like Radio Free Europe, but sharing the good news, good work stories. Is this realistic, or is the world, quote, the world too large of an audience?
Yeah, this is it's hard to tell. I think it's more of a challenge in the sense that mainstream mm, is or like the world of like bigger audience is harder to know who's out there and who would be interested, how to do marketing on such a wide like is do you have like so okay, it is the world because we all want what we want, right? um do you have an age in mind? Is this I'm talking about millennials. Everyone that has heard me in the podcast knows that I am a millennial wannabe. I love millennials. Or no, I wanna focus on the 45 to 65 bracket because they watch too much Fox. We need other voices. But it is just a bigger undertaking to be able to identify who they are out there. Um, you would have to find, age, or you would have to say, but I don't think it's impossible. It's just that it's daunting. I would have to say, I mean, these days marketing, they specify up to like what brands do you use, what do you listen. It's crazy. It's just we're not aware of it. But like I would have to say, um, identify your ideal. Like there is an amazing podcast called Radio Ambulante, which is one of the famous ones, NPR, one that you would listen to. There is an amazing NPR podcast. Who are those listeners? And that if you identify who they are, they would be your world, but you have to say what age, what education, what income, what preferences, what music, what books they read. What would this be yet on the things that they would consume, this audience? I would piggyback on sort of the audience of one of those really well made, big. But the thing is that you're selling it. It's a harder sell. I mean, I hope I reach the world, but I know that we are very niche and we are small. And there's people that said peace and conflict. They still don't know what that is. They still don't know it's a field of study. So we're still doing some of that. But don't let that stop you from sort of trying, because if there's one thing you could do is, well, you're not growing, if something is happening, you can always change it and pivoting. That's the only thing that could do so. Don't be discouraged by it. But yeah, I would say, um, assume you're a professor. The more contained the research, as we tell all our students, small, small, small. This is too big. You can't do it. Kind of similar here.
And Robin, FYI, I am scheduled to guest lecture in Paula's social entrepreneurship class in November, and she's going to introduce personas before I came in, if we do it the same way we did it last year. And my class is going to be focused on customer journey mapping. And so you'll start with a persona and then create the journey that you send your customer on to engage with your service, product, etc. And so maybe launching a podcast. Hopefully it's a tool that would be helpful in determining your path here. So with that, let's, Catalina, I want to let you kind of share your screen into actually audio editing, I think is something that you wanted to cover in these last kind of 10 to 15 minutes that we have here.
Awesome. Okay, well, wish
and
me
Sarai
luck.
Is here on hand in case
I know she's there. That's the only thing I have.
Becomes difficult. For those of you who are interested in this, please stay with us, please stay on. And for those of you who you've gotten all the insights that you need for today, please feel free to hop off. And we appreciate having spent this time with you. But with that, I'll send it back to your screen, Catalina.
And Krista, I would love to do the customer journey persona for PCDN. That would be amazing. That's oh my goodness. Okay, well, let's see. Should we do you guys want to do do you guys want to see the audio editing or the AI software, or both? Do you want to write in the chat what you would like, or both? And I don't take offense if you need to go, because this has been long. So both I hear. Okay. So I'm going to share, and I'm going to go to, hopefully it's here, to the internet. Okay, let's see. Do you see my screen?
We see just like San Diego.zoom. We now see the Zoom window. So we are seeing the windows. As you're changing them, we're seeing the windows. So if you pop it up.
You say, okay, so I guess, Auphonic. I always, okay, so this is, remember at the beginning when I recorded in Zoom, and then I changed it from MP3 to MP4. So I don't have anything new to show you, but I will, well, for the purposes of this. So I have 6 hours available. Here is where you write new production, and you upload here. As you see, it's a file, and it has to be an MP3. And I told you that there were a lot of things that they will ask you, and I'm not expert on any of this, but I had someone that helped me, and the output files, and this is sort of how do you want the quality of the sounds. This is what's important. I go to here and I mark, so I upload the file, then I go 192 in bit rate. The ending is an MP3. And then speech recognition, I don't touch any of this. And explore this. Just because I don't explore it doesn't mean it doesn't give you a better podcast. It's just that you're overwhelmed with everything that you have in your life. So explore these, get better, and then come tell me. And then basically start production. And in 7 minutes, they will send, hey, you're done. And then you have your produce. That's how easy it is. And this is something that before I would have to hire, I had my producer. So it was, even though I cried when he broke up with me, look at what a blessing I have this. So this is the Auphonic, which is the artificial intelligence produced. So how awesome is that, right? And then I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. This is Audacity, and you're still seeing my screen.
Yep.
So this is Audacity. And Audacity, as I told you, like 4 times already, it's a bit clunky because Mac. So you have Audacity, and you have this nice little screen, which is
Are other folks seeing Audacity? Because I'm still seeing the Auphonics.
Oh, you don't see it? Yeah, I'm gonna, let me see. This is Zoom. Zoom doesn't have its share capabilities down to a T, but we'll do it again.
I know, I always have to like stop sharing, and then like find my window and share again.
Yeah, we've noticed that in now you can see it, right?
Yes,
There's
Audacity. Yes.
there's something clunky, and in all these webinars that we've done this on 2020, we have realized that the sharing is not great. Okay, so this is the screen. I'm not intimidated by it anymore because it's my friend and we've been friends for a while. But it might be at first you see it, but GarageBand is a lot more scarier. So Audacity, you go here and you're gonna import an audio. I had an audio ready for you in my desktop. Sorry for my mess. I had it. Where is Pablo? I can do. I had just selected one of you in advance, and obviously I don't see it.
Pablo in the top row, kind of the middle.
You see, look at me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So you're importing. This is a Pablo final. So I'm going to show you how it sounds, and then we're going to play with it. This was already on air, so I can play with it and destroyed. Well, not destroyed, but play with it a little bit. So it doesn't take that much time. Okay, so this is your podcast as it is 100% produced. But this originally was 3 files, and you can open it up and see the audio as it works. And so if flat lines feel that it means that there is silence. And what I've done here is, okay, so I can tell you from graphically that this is my introduction, and this is the end of the introduction, and this of the pre-recorded introduction. So I'm gonna play you the transition between the music and the intro with the actual recording as it was taped into two. Or yes, 10 seconds. I think you can spare 10 seconds. I don't know if you can hear it. I've never done this in my life.
Welcome back to another season of the Social Change Career Podcast. This is season 7. I'm Catalina, your host, and this podcast is powered by the Rotary Peace Fellowship. A quote from today's guest. All my experiences helped me to develop an ethos of critical thinking, discovery, and cross-cultural understanding.
Okay, of all the audios that I chose today, I happened to choose the one that started with a quote, which I don't usually do, but this is what happens. I'm so sorry. It's just that this guest, Pablo, a social entrepreneur from Spain, had this amazing quote and I fell in love with it. So every now and then I change it, but it's usually like my conversation. But you saw the music. So the music at that intro always goes. And so you see here is a little bit of silence.
All my experiences.
And then the voice starts. And so you can select. This is what you do when you select. You can cut things with this. You can move it around, and you can have files. And it's really incredible. I'm gonna walk you to the end of it. And this is if you want to see it super granular, how your audio works. But sometimes for ease, you want to compress it as well. So you have this compress. It's so fun. And not that I have experimented with most, because if I have something and it works, I keep at it. I keep with it. But I really like Audacity, except with the problem of the Macs. But it works with me. I understand it. I don't know. I found it that is Catalina friendly. And I want to show you here sort of the end of how his voice translates into the outro as well. And if you want me to show you something in particular, by any means, show me, because I don't know exactly what would be useful for you.
Troublemaker, social change, stubborn optimist with us. Bye-bye. Thanks to the Rotary Peace Fellowship for making this episode possible. If you're a peace and development leader looking to take your career to the next level, you might be eligible to receive full funding to pursue an MA or...
Well, that's the ending that it's a little bit longer because I do a little bit spiel for the sponsor there. But that's what you have to do. Anything in particular that you would like me to do or see, or do you want to see lip sync, how I do the distribution? Tell me what is useful, because we're running out of time, and I just, this is doesn't do justice because this takes longer. But do you want to see lip sync, or do you want to see me playing, cutting and pasting? What would be most helpful to you guys?
Ooh, I'm torn. This is a tough one. Robin? Lip sync would be helpful. We've got Caitlin coming to all of our rescue. Lisa chimes in, lip sync.
Okay, well, let's take a look at lip sync that was here waiting for you. Look at me. This is not because I had it prepared for you, it's because tomorrow is Friday.
Yes.
So this is actually it says that, so welcome to lip sync.
We're still seeing Pablo's
Yeah.
file. We have to do the stop share.
So sorry guys for Zoom, and it's and you think you're sharing, right? And then someone has to say, please share it again. Welcome to lip sync. Okay, so welcome to lip sync. And again, this is one of the first podcast distribution sites that started. So tons of things, and now in 2020 even more, because everyone had even more time to develop their software. So I'm logging. I have Catalina Rojas. This is the Social Change Career Podcast. I like leaving this page will cause you to lose any unsafe changes. Yes, I want to leave this page because I live dangerously. Hopefully I didn't erase tomorrow's podcast. I'll have to do it again. So this is the dashboard of lip sync. They say quick publish. I never use it. These are my stats. And I started with like 150 to 250 downloads. And I'm really happy. September was amazing. And this is, have I changed anything? The only thing that I've changed is the frequency that I am doing it weekly. And it's giving me phenomenal results. And to be perfectly honest, it's not that more people are like, oh my gosh, this podcast is amazing. It's a matter that there are more episodes and therefore more people listening to it. So I strongly recommend. It took me 2 years, so please don't do what I do. If you can do it weekly, start weekly, and you'll be on much stronger footing than I was. So those are some few stats, and basically it's all I'm going to show you the previously published ones. They're there. I'm going to show you one that I haven't that I already published. So you have this is a place where this is not available for the public. They will put it on the podcast, in the Google podcast, but this is like your back end. This is a place to have them, but you still need the website to show them to the public. But at least if at the very minimum, you will have this. I went to edit again. Here is the master file again, MP3. That's the final one that is already has the intro, the outro is pretty. You always have to update ID tags. You go to and it walks you through the show notes. This is how I do my show notes. I always do the links. Key links. I always keep it to 3 unrelated topics that we want to, and the sponsor, of course. Artwork this season, I'm not doing artwork, and I'm gonna, if we have time, I'm gonna show you, because we have the pictures and everything is pretty in our website. And this is the scheduling. This is very important, and it's all very easy. All of these tools are easy. If I did it, I'm sure you could do it, and way better. That you can put as many already produced podcasts as you possibly can, and you can release them at the time of your choosing. So that's actually an amazing thing to do. The expiration date, some people have podcasts that disappear. Mine choose to never expire, but there's no right and wrong here. It's just personal decisions and the intention you want. And I don't want to mess up with this. Are you sure you want to cancel? All changes will be lost. No, I didn't change anything. I hope I didn't screw it up, but that one is already in the air, so I'm not stressed. So this was lip sync. we don't have that much time. Anything, I'm going to stop the sharing. This was a little bit of the graphic, sort of how it feels, how it looks. Any parting question? Do world events ever motivate you to change your pipeline? Oh, that is a very good question. It is tricky. Because you have to know that you're recording something and it's going to go 2 months. But some podcasts, I was talking 6 months in advance. You have to be cognizant of where you're talking. This year, I added a lot of COVID-19 related questions because I think these are the questions that we all have in our minds. And even though some guests might have tomorrow's guest has an amazing women and leadership event forum, and I wanted to do it tomorrow because her conference will be next week, but that will be relevant in 6 months. I can live with that because people can go back to her conference and check it out and maybe sign up next year. During quarantine times, it was I'm now showing the month the day in which it was recorded so that people have an idea. But I'm always asking, especially at the beginning, how is your city doing? Oh, we're having closures. And if you listen to that 3 years later, actually would be amazing to record what we did during this time. But excellent question in that, hey, I want my thing to be relevant. I want to talk about the presidential debate tonight. Well, then you have to do a podcast in which you can produce it at the minute, and that's great. That's great too.
Wonderful. Well, it has been a super rich hour and a half.
Yes.
This recording is like a golden nugget that we will all receive, and I'm sure go back and reference many times for those who choose to go on in their podcast endeavors. We appreciate it. Students, we appreciate you when you bring your questions, your ideas to us, and however we can be helpful, whether that's through individual sessions that we can set up or ones where you say, actually, I know, my fellow students would be interested as well. So I hope this was everything you wanted it to be, Robin, and classmates who have joined. Catalina, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your humbleness and just the wonderful aura that you have.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for listening. That was a lot of information, and I had a tremendous amount of fun. And I I was thinking, I did all this to dissuade you so that you're not my competition, but no, not really. Believe me, we would love nothing more than to have more social change making podcasts. It's just a lot of work, and I did this with a lot of love for you, and I love the Kroc School, and I good luck in your podcast, and I'm available if you have any question to be able to help you in the future, because the more we are, the better, and we need a lot of these type of voices these days more than ever. So actually, the more the merrier. So yes.
Wonderful. Okay, everybody, we will work on getting the link out to you as well as the presentation. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Sarai. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye, California.